Our next story is about the changing power dynamics in the Indo-Pacific. Australia is getting nuclear submarines. A high-stakes meeting is scheduled for next week. The US is going to host it in San Diego. It's an AUKUS meet. Now, what is AUKUS? It's a group of 3 countries, Australia, the United Kingdom and the United States. AUKUS, AUKUS. President Joe Biden, Prime Ministers Rishi Sunak and Anthony Albanese will all attend this meeting. Now, for all practical purposes, AUKUS is a grouping aimed at China. Washington, London and Canberra say they're working together to preserve the sanctity of the international law in the Indo-Pacific. And to that end, Australia is all set to get nuclear submarines. These will add to Canberra's naval prowess. But China is not impressed, and for obvious reasons. First, let's tell you what Australia is eyeing. 5 nuclear submarines. It hopes to get them in a decade. And these will all be provided by the United States. The deal is expected to be announced next week. The US is looking to sell its Virginia-class nuclear submarines to Australia. These are America's latest fast-track submarines. They can employ a variety of weapons, including torpedoes and cruise missiles. And they're also capable of carrying out intelligence gathering and reconnaissance missions. Reports say the United Kingdom has also scored a big win here. The UK and Australia will work jointly to develop a next-generation nuclear submarine. This project could stretch well into the 2040s. Until then, the American Virginia-class submarines will act as a stopgap. Next question. Why does Australia need nuclear submarines? Also, what are nuclear submarines? They're nuclear powered, they run on nuclear power, but they do not necessarily carry nuclear weapons, and it's important to make that distinction. These are nuclear powered submarines. They may or may not have nuclear weapons. Now, running on nuclear fuel has many advantages. Conventional submarines are diesel powered. They have to come out of water. They have to surface quite frequently to consume oxygen. But that's not the case with nuclear submarines. These beasts can stay underwater for extremely long periods of time. How does that help? It makes these submarines more stealthy. It makes their detection very difficult. Not many countries in the world today have nuclear submarines. It's a small and rather exclusive club of 6 nations: the United States, the United Kingdom, Russia, India, France and China. 6 countries. By 2030, Australia could join this club, and it's very happy about it. Here's what Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese had to say about this.
This will be the single biggest leap in our defence capability in our history. AUKUS is about much more than nuclear submarines or even technological interoperability. AUKUS is about the future. It further formalises the common values and the shared interests that our 3 nations have in preserving peace and upholding the rules and institutions that secure our region and our world.
Australia wasn't always supposed to get nuclear submarines. Earlier, it had a deal with France. It was supposed to buy a dozen diesel-powered conventional submarines. But in 2021, Australia scrapped that deal. Almost immediately, the AUKUS alliance was announced. Its primary agenda was to sell nuclear submarines to Australia. Of course, the French were not happy about it. In fact, French President Macron's government said it had been backstabbed. This was a decade-old submarine deal that Canberra had tore up. You could say it had compelling reasons to do this. Tensions between Australia and China were soaring. China had weaponized trade and sought to punish Australia. And why did China want to punish Australia? Because Australia asked for an investigation into the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic, and it made China very angry. In fact, whenever countries utter the words COVID-19 and origins in the same breath, China tends to fly off the handle. No prizes for guessing why. And its aggression across the Indo-Pacific is well documented. From the South China Sea to the Indian Ocean and the Taiwan Strait, Beijing's expansionism continues. Australia wants to be able to counter that. So when the US and UK offered not just nuclear submarines, but also technology to Australia, it was too good an offer to be turned down. And China's reaction has been predictable. Listen to this.
United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia to carry out and continue to promote nuclear submarine cooperation poses a serious nuclear proliferation risk, intensifies the arms race, and undermines regional peace and stability. China is gravely concerned about this and firmly objects to it. The relevant cooperation among the three countries has also raised increasing international concerns.
China has at least 6 nuclear submarines in its arsenal. And the US is willing to provide 5 such submarines to Australia in the next 10 years. Also, the UK. It could also lease 2 Astute-class nuclear submarines to Australia. So that's 7 nuclear subs right there, as opposed to China's 6 at the moment. And that should tell you why China is panicking. It will obviously try to increase its fleet, but the Indo-Pacific is changing for sure. Australia will join India in having nuclear submarines. The US and the UK are not shy of deploying their own submarines in the region. The scales are slowly but surely tilting, and they're not tilting in China's favor.